So let's talk about politics for a minute. So, there's a lot of people out there that say, you know, they're a Democrat or Republican, that they are independent, you know, and then we have the people that hate those parties. So the Democrats hate the Republicans and Republicans hate the Democrats, and both of them think that the independents are lazy, non-working bums or whatever. I don't know, they're speculations. I can't speak for them directly. But one thing I do know is, let's take into account these presidential elections. Alright? Now, feel free, please, in the comments below to correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't think I've ever been alive, and I'm 28, long enough to see a candidate for presidency that was not extremely well off. Now, by extremely well off, I really mean that they make over 6 figures a year easily, or have that much in their bank. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but most candidates, and I'm talking about the last 2 primary ones. I'm not talking about like the guy that just ran in this last election that called himself D's Nuts. Okay, I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about the last 2 people to pick from. As far as I can ever remember, they're always very wealthy. Very wealthy. And they say, well, it takes a wealthy person to run for presidency because the campaigns cost so much. Well, you know, and I'll cite or quote, you know, whomever said this. Pretty sure it was a comedian or something, but they should all be forced to wear jackets stating who is supporting their campaign. Kind of like how race cars do in NASCAR. They put on their vehicles stickers for who supports them. Okay, and who sponsors them? Well, if someone's sponsoring the next president of the United States, don't you think you should know who's sponsoring them? Because you really kind of don't want to vote for the president who's sponsored by KillEverybody.com or whatever, man. But nevertheless, do you think your vote counts? Do you think your vote and voice matters? So let's look about how this process kind of works. When it's time to vote for the next president of the United States, everybody gets to go out and you can submit an absentee ballot or a regular ballot and vote, right? And you go to like an electronic terminal, and some places, I'm assuming, still do paper copies or whatever. But those votes get tallied up. Now, if you'll notice, the votes for the presidency never come out as 147,355,161 people voted for so-and-so, right? That's not how it works. They give a percentage of a state. And so each state has a certain number of representatives that represent the people. Now, if you think that they don't have their own opinions and decisions too, you'd be crazy. So all of your votes go to a group of people picked by your state. Somehow, I've never seen these guys put up for election. I've never seen where I can vote to pick these people. But they are there. I don't know much about them. But I do know that we all get together and cast our stones for who we want to be picked. And then that goes before a group of people and they say, well, we see your opinions. We see who the people of this state want to pick. Well, I don't have to go with your decision. I could if I wanted to, but if I go with this guy, I get my campaign paid for my next, campaign for whatever they want to be or whatever. You know, well, this person's going to give me more of a raise. I'll just go with them. However that whole system works, which I really don't even need to know, And you don't really need to know either. Just know that your vote is not the one that the last group of people sees. A group of people take your vote, take it under consideration, cast their votes to another group of people who take their vote under consideration and cast their votes. So it's like, so-and-so said such and such, said so-and-so, said such and such, said so-and-so and such and such. And this is what everybody thinks in the end. Okay. Well, the problem is that there's no proof whatsoever that your single vote even matters. Not at all. Because at the end of the day, you're voting for two people who are richer than you and your entire family. Okay? You're voting for two people that are chances more rich and more powerful than everyone you know and everyone you've ever met. Right? Chances are, I mean, maybe you've met somebody super rich and this doesn't apply. Okay? But it still kind of applies because you're probably not. If you're watching this video, chances are you're not rich. And if you are, come on, share some of the wealth and I'll quit talking. But at the end of the day, you get to pick. Do I want rich person number 1 or rich person number 2? Which rich person can accurately understand my feelings about the world and take those things into account? Which rich person can accurately say that they understand the struggle of American citizens? I'd like to see the candidate that's had to eat ramen noodles. Not that they're bad. Hey, I eat them. I have them in my house for groceries. You know, they cost $1.97 for 12 of them. That's 12 meals. But I bet while these candidates are having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and probably up over thousands of dollars for a dinner, I'm sitting at home eating less than 10 or 15 cents for my whole meal. And I'm supposed to believe that this candidate understands my dilemma? Understands your dilemma? I'm supposed to believe that these candidates who've never had to sleep in their vehicles, never had to live beyond their means greatly just to barely eke by, I'm supposed to believe that these guys know exactly what's best for this country? I'm supposed to believe that? What's best for this country? The wage gap disappearing. You want to know how to stop drugs and poverty and suicide rates and all kinds of other things like that? Give us the resources to do so. I'm sorry, but when there's a wage gap that says, well, if you are an average citizen, you're in poverty. You know, I mean, these candidates have nothing in common with us, but here's the problem. At the end of the day, you got candidate 1, who's a turd. And you got candidate 2, who's a turd. Which one's the least smelly? That's the option that you get to decide. Which candidate's least smelly? Here, I'll implore you. Everybody in the entire United States, watch what happens if you don't vote. Nobody go and vote next presidential election and see what happens. See what happens. See how they still elect a representative. See how that still works. Because myself, I don't know a single person outside of my family. A few of my family members vote, but mostly I don't know anybody that does. Nobody. Why? Because our individual votes don't count. Because it doesn't come down to the single vote. It comes down to the millions and millions and millions in percentages. And it doesn't even come down to a real number. It comes down to a percent, 42% to 58. That's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to the actual people. And when they say, oh, there's so many ballots that are faked and so many ballots that are wrong. Okay, there's easy ways to fix that. If we sure can find ways to make nuclear weapons and weapons that can destroy entire countries in the entire world, but we can't figure out for the life of us how to count, then you know something's messed up. Come on, be realistic with yourself. Be realistic with everybody. If we can send people to the moon, live stream, in the 1960s, if we can send images back from outer space, but we can't freaking count, what does that tell you? Does that tell you that we can actually do any of those other things? That's in another video. But does it tell you that we still just can't count? The representatives picked don't represent you. It doesn't matter what you think. Donald Trump doesn't represent white America. Hillary Clinton didn't represent females. She didn't represent shit but money. He doesn't represent shit but money. That's all they represent. And honestly, if you think that they control shit, you are baffled. You are off your rocker. Because at the end of the day, money controls the world. And neither one of those fools control any sort of the banks. And the banks are where the money comes from. Because if you think the Federal Reserve is really a government institution, you'd be wrong. Research that. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, does taking the time to form an opinion on a politician really give you power? Does it really give you the ability to change the world? And for those of you that tell people who don't vote it's your fault that the world is this way, no, I'm sorry. You picked a turd. It's your fault for picking the turd. That's the problem. You picked one of the two turds. I didn't pick a turd because I thought they were both turds. End of story. I knew my vote didn't count. You just disbelieve that your vote doesn't. That's the problem. You're in denial. So, at the end of the day, new generations are being born and new revelations are happening. So, maybe the question you should ask yourself is, in this grand scheme of things, does your vote count? Does your opinion really matter to them? Do these politicians accurately represent you? Have they been in similar scenarios and situations that you can say you relate to? That's for you to decide.